In this episode, we explore the growing concerns of the community for their legal rights in opposing the pipeline.
EQT and NextEra have submitted a formal proposal to FERC, the federal agency that will ultimately have say on whether to greenlight the pipeline. Tonight, we heard from many landowners who say they're worried that they've already been contacted by surveyors to survey their property, but tonight they learned their legal rights.
Do not sign anything, do not negotiate anything without legal counsel, was the mantra from the stage.
It seems to me that the only thing that FERC is really going to listen to is political pressure and public opinion.
So I think that we have to attack these three pipelines together and see that we don't need three pipelines.
Agriculture and forestry are the leading sources of revenue in the state of Virginia, and this pipeline is going through largely rural areas.
EQT and NextEra have made their formal pre-filing, and we are in what FERC calls an intervention period. Now through November of 2016, FERC will accept comments for or against the pipeline.
The government agency that grants the permit to build the pipeline through our community is FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It's an independent commission created by Congress to be free of partisan politics.
He will determine what the impacts are, and then no matter how devastating, we'll grant the certificate. Because that's what FERC does. That's what federal agencies do. They analyze environmental impacts and then say, go ahead and do it.
That revolving door and that cozy relationship that actually allows FERC to serve the interests of private corporations works best in the dark. And what we need to do is shine a light on it.
The U.S. Supreme Court has said clearly that the government may not condemn private property for a private use, but only for a public use. And the statute makes no distinction between a private and a public use, but merely allows the pipeline company, because it is a pipeline company or because it is a gas transmission company, to survey before the determination has been made about whether that gas will be put to a public use. Yes?
I had a guy come to my property wanting to have the right survey, and I told him to leave. But he told me the easements, what they was wanting, and he said there's already an easement on your property because the Appalachian power line runs through there. And we're going to use that same area. And there was no offer of compensation. He just said, please sign here and I'll be on my way.
So it's a question for each of you whether you want to let a company on to survey your property. I think that it's pretty clear that the statute, the Virginia statute, allows it, but the U.S. Constitution may not.
Everybody here knows how corrupt the government is. We expect nothing from the government. So for you to keep saying that is no news.
Okay,
our power is in our numbers, and we will stop this pipeline.
They're here tonight to provide you information so that you feel empowered.
These gas line companies are using the power, threatening to use the power of eminent domain to take property to build a pipeline. Number one, you want to make sure that your land's posted. Number two, if somebody shows up, you want to ask them to leave the property. Number three, if they don't, then that's when you would call the sheriff. You want to have good photographs of how your property looks, that you only give them the right to survey when you say they can survey and under your supervision. Common sense would tell you that if you had the choice of the two farms that I mentioned here tonight, and you knew that the gas company had all the rights that they have with a pipeline, the pipeline company is going to say that makes no difference in value. With a straight face, they will say that. You're not going to buy that if that farm is $400,000 and the farm without a pipeline is $400,000. You're going where there's no pipeline, because that's a sophisticated buyer, which is you. Every person in this room, I think, somebody let me know if the pipeline doesn't bother you, but most all Americans don't want a farm or a home with pipeline.
In Kentucky, the Bluegrass pipeline was lost in a court ruling because of this very same thing, that the pipeline was only for a private use for this company. It wasn't for a public use, because it was just going to transport gas through the state.
In 2012, the law of Virginia was changed. And the law of Virginia says that it has to be for the public truly and not for the benefit of a person or organization. And then after the legislators approved it in 2 separate laws in 2 separate sessions, we the people 2 years ago voted 75% of us to change that. That's changed. We're protected. However, the gas companies are going to federal court. They're getting these federal permits. So the question is, well, even though they're taking it for what's perceived as a public purpose, the gas, it's going to go out of state, out of country, we believe. Okay. That's not really a public purpose. Could that be challenged? Well, you can always challenge.
We can't have freedom of the press or freedom of speech or freedom of religion if you don't also have the respect for property rights. Property rights are about human dignity. That's why when people's property is taken under the power of eminent domain, that's the right of the government or the sovereign to take someone's property for the public good, and that's important. It's supposed to be taken only for the public good. But when property is taken for the public good, our Constitution in Virginia and the United States Constitution, that requires that a property owner receive just compensation. That's not a law, that's not a custom, that's a constitutional guarantee.
Building pipelines cost billions of dollars, and delays in the transmission of this enormous supply of fracked natural gas to new markets is not what pipeline companies want. The Mountain Valley Pipeline, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and the Appalachian Connector are in a race to build through Virginia. Be vigilant and proactive. Big Energy needs to protect its corporate financial interests. We need to protect something much more important: our land and water, the very air we breathe.